There's a relatively easy to use creative tool that allows almost anyone to make their own video game, and the results are pretty good. Well, at least sometimes. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we look at mods of the Beats of Rage games.
Second Opinion Games.
The open BOR, or Beats of Rage development tool, has been out there for quite some time, and a lot of people made quite a few games with them. Most of them are really bad, but I want to show you some of the more interesting ones that I found. Now, I managed to get all of these to run on a modded Xbox, or even burnt onto a CD and played on my Dreamcast. However, sometimes it's just easy enough to put it onto a file and load it onto a PS1 classic of all things. Anyway, look at it, you can find these out there and find them for free at that. So I encourage you to go exploring for them and then maybe play them for yourself. King of Fighters World Heroes Supreme Justice Extra is a really long name for a game. It's based off the King of Fighters series. It has a little bit of a story here. You can choose between 5 different characters. I recommend checking out the female character because she moves really fast. Now, each of the characters actually have their own special moves, but they're usually performed the exact same way, by double tapping and then maybe hitting the action button, a simple jump kick, hitting multiple buttons at the same time, throwing people in air, or the half circle forward and then pressing the action button. There's also a block here, which you're gonna have to use in order to kill some of the bosses because you don't have infinite lives here. So you have to think smart when playing this game. Unlike in the arcade where you can just shove more quarters into it, and this actually feels like a full-fledged arcade experience. If this was in the arcade back at the time, I think I would have played the crap out of it, despite me not being interested in King of Fighters whatsoever. I think it's just the really fast movements, and it really shows that this engine is very capable at creating some great games. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Now, most people really love the Simpsons arcade game, and even though I beat it in the arcade, I thought it was too long and too repetitive. When I saw they had a one-up arcade machine, I knew I was going to stay far away from it, because after playing through the game one time, you're really kind of fed up with it, even though most people consider it to be one of the best beat-em-ups ever. I think this one is far superior. You can play as El Barto, which is Bart Simpson's alter ego. You can play as Homer, or you could play as Krusty the Clown. Each of these also has their own special move bar. Bart can pull down his pants and moon people, Homer can go into an alcoholic rage, and Krusty the Clown can summon people to fight for him. Also, there are characters on screen that if you save them, they might turn into a beer to replenish some health, which is extra awkward when playing as Bart. Giving him a couple of cans of beer doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but it fits right in with Homer or Krusty the Clown. Or sometimes they will join the fight and continue to beat up everyone. There was a lot of love to the Simpsons universe in here with lots of homages, so if you're a longtime fan of the Simpsons, you will love all the little Easter eggs that you could find in this game. There are far more than in the actual official arcade game. Also, the combos and the moves feel more natural. There's a block button here also, but you don't have to use it at all. And there's even some stages where you could be Homer Simpson driving a car and smashing into stuff. This is a top tier beat 'em up experience. Silver Knight Crusaders completely blew my mind on what was capable with this engine because it's a 2D action platform game. It's also seemingly based off of, Castlevania, one of the best video game series ever. You can pick between 3 different characters, each with their own moves. This girl, which is super hot with this giant weapon thing, a guy that looks kind of like Richter Belmont, and another guy that looks like Alucard, but placed with a forward dash instead of a back dash, which can get you killed at times. So make sure you learn the characters inside and out. Also, some of the sprites have been directly ripped off from Castlevania, as well as the music, which means the music here is phenomenal as well. This is all about learning patterns and how to play through the entire game with the 2 or 3 lives that you might actually have, but you're gonna want to keep coming back to it because it's just more Castlevania goodness. We haven't been seeing a whole lot of 2D Castlevania in the recent years, and this shows that it can be done great, even on a really simple engine. Quite frankly, it puts the rest of the games that I'm going to talk about to shame. Ghouls and Ghosts, another 2D action platformer experience, and it feels like it should be in the arcade, only it wasn't really done with as much love as the other games that I talked about so far. It really needed a little bit more time and polish. I really do love the sprite work. Everyone is super huge, however you don't pick up any extra weapons, you're just throwing that lance, and your jump feels incredibly awkward. Kind of like the Ghouls and Ghosts series in general, they never really had a whole lot of control with Arthur. Now, I also like some of the facts that they ripped off artifacts from other games, like that giant thing that shows up in Alter Beast. That's really cool. So they're trying a lot of new things here. The music is also pretty good. I don't see a whole lot of special effects going on, but it's just a simple platformer game that I kind of like. It's just a shame because this could have been incredibly good. Dungeons & Dragons: The Rise of Warduke. Right off the start, there is a ton of story here, something that Beats of Rage games don't normally have, so this is very much welcome here. You could choose between 3 different characters, each have their own spells and summons experiences, and the controls are fairly okay. This is definitely not the best Dungeons & Dragons experience. I think that was Dungeons & Dragons: The Chronicles of Mysteria that you could find really cheap on the Wii U. I really thought that was more fleshed out, but this is also pretty darn good. As you play through the game, you're going to notice lots of D&D characters that have been probably ripped off of other games because, you know, the sprites are just too darn good. And some of the levels go on way too long. Also, some of the bosses go on too long as well. So it doesn't keep the experience feeling too fresh. But that story is definitely good enough to keep you playing all the way through. If you have a friend, it makes it even better. I really think you should give this one a try. Now I'm going to jump into a bunch of different games based off of IPs from my childhood, starting from my youngest, going up to the oldest, and how I was interested in each of the subjects. So let's jump in to He-Man. Masters of the Universe. Boy, was I ever psyched for this. Tons of parallax scrolling, massive He-Man sprite on the screen. You could use your sword to beat down everyone for lots of hard strikes, or you could put away your sword and use your fists to He-Man things to death. There is music directly ripped off from the animated series here, which I absolutely love. Just, I have to be extra careful on YouTube. Maybe I have to mute the sound or make it really low here because I don't want to get in too much trouble. And when I started playing through the game, I really loved it. The adrenaline rush of nostalgia was unparalleled. And when I fought Skeletor for the first time, holy crap, is he ever tough. He better be, because he's probably also the last boss of the game. Unfortunately, I'll never know because it started glitching and doing this weird thing with fireballs and wouldn't let me continue past the first stage. This is a shame. I think maybe I have a bad copy of the game, and if you have a good copy of it, well then, you're gonna fall in love with this one because He-Man is freaking awesome. Almost as awesome as G.I. Joe, a real American hero. From the start of this game, you know it's gonna be completely ridiculous because, you know, they're target shooting on an airplane while in flight. That doesn't really sound like a good idea. And then Cobra starts attacking. You could pick from Sergeant Slaughter, Snake Eyes, Hawk, or some other dude that I didn't have. I had almost every G.I. Joe when I was a kid, and I even have that USS Flag, which is here in the game. Some of the levels also go on for way too long, and it gets kind of repetitive. We also have a block hero as well as some other special moves that we could do, even pulling out a gun and shooting everyone in sight. But the vehicle segments are what brings the game down just a little tiny bit. They go on for far too long, and you're just sort of mindlessly playing. The beat 'em up stages, however, are done perfect, and I really enjoy those. Seeing all the different characters from the G.I. Joe cartoons, as well as the G.I. Joe music that was ripped off of them, just makes for what could be the very best G.I. Joe video game I've ever played. And I think I've played them all, from the NES to the arcade, and even some modern ones that aren't nearly as good as this. Mortal Kombat Outworld Assassins. Why didn't we get this game on like the PlayStation or the Nintendo 64? Instead, we got Mythologies of Sub-Zero. This blows that out of the water by far, and it also happens to be the best Mortal Kombat game that isn't a one-on-one fighter ever. You know what? That Shaolin Monks game on the original Xbox was pretty good, but not nearly as good as this. You also have fatalities that you can perform on characters. You have your special moves, usually the standard half circle forward and double tapping the dash. You don't have the block button here, which is something that Mortal Kombat was really known for. You can play as Scorpion, Sub-Zero, or Noob Sagat. And yeah, this is the game. You can also pick up weapons and hack people apart. The gore is definitely on point here, and the game is just plain fun. The combos are fluid, and everything happens incredibly fast. The levels really never outstay themselves, and the fact that you want to see what characters you could kill next will push you forward all the way through to the end of the game, and it's not a short one either. So get ready to experience what could be one of the best Mortal Kombat games since Mortal Kombat 2. Of course, my interest from here got a little more naughty, so check out well, we'll call it Girl Babes. Now, this is a beat 'em up with strippers from the local club that someone convinced to stand from the green screen and perform random moves. I recommend starting with your starting girl. You do unlock more girls as the game progresses, but they don't really feel as fleshed out as this one, and she's honestly the best. The combos here are incredibly good. You could juggle people up in the air. The special moves, there are quite a bit of them. You could hold the action button down and then release it, double tap to do a jump kick attack, and even the half circle forward to unleash, dragons out of your boobies and other things like that. Now, there is quite a bit of nudity here on top of some other things that I really can't show you or even talk about. This is kind of a weird game. It's also very draining on you. Even though it takes 40 minutes to play from start to finish from the whole game, after 20 minutes, you're gonna feel like not playing it anymore. It does have an interesting level up system. As you beat up people, it shoots out green orbs, and every time you level up, you refill your health bar, so you potentially can play through this entire game on a single life. However, do you really want to? Probably not. This is kind of fun, especially to show to your friends if they're into that type of thing, but I really wouldn't sit there and play it with them because they're going to be creeped out pretty darn fast. If you had to pick just one of these games to go after, well then pick Silver Knight of the Crusaders, because Castlevania is awesome, and I really love 2D action platformers more than the Beats of Rage games themselves. Other than that, The Simpsons is awesome. The G.I. Joe is a great experience to have. Even though you can go wrong playing fan-made games, sometimes they will surprise you and end up being some of the best video game experiences you could ever have. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it because I got a chance to explore some games that people with a lot of passion put into them. And it was just kind of amazing to see how a small budget team could make games better than, these giant studios today. Quite frankly, some of these really put companies to shame, and these people should really be given some jobs in the video game industry if they already don't have one. So if I left out your favorite Beats of Rage game, let me know what it is in the comments down below, and maybe I'll do a part 2. So until later, I will see you again, guys.